6, 2013 meeting of the Lake Forest Building Review Board. I'm Charlie King, Chairman of the Building Review Board. At this time, I ask members of the board to introduce themselves, starting to my left.
Fred Moyer.
Robert Reda.
Michael Bleck.
Monica Ruggles.
Ted Notz.
Ross Friedman.
The board is here tonight to work together with all of you, property owners, architects, neighborhoods, and interested citizens, to continue the long tradition that allows Lake Forest residents and businesses to work together to preserve the qualities and the unique character that make Lake Forest a special community. We recognize the personal importance of each petitioner's request. Our goal is to respect the needs and desires of property owners while balancing the interests of the community as a whole to preserve and enhance its architectural character and landscape streetscapes. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Building Review Board, the types of projects that come before this board are those in which the property owners are requesting a variance to allow a home that is larger than permitted by the code, are seeking a demolition permit and approval of a replacement structure, or otherwise involve issues that could not be fully resolved by city staff. It is important to note that over 95% of the building permits are issued by the city without the need for any board review. Thus, the board typically handles the most challenging and sometimes controversial projects. The City of Lake Forest is committed to conducting open and fair meetings. To achieve that goal, the board has adopted meeting procedures and all parties will be provided an opportunity to speak. These procedures are outlined on the agendas available at the back of the room. This meeting is also broadcast on cable television. Speaking on behalf of the entire board and city staff, our objective is to provide a review process that's thorough, fair, and without necessary delay. The next order of business is the approval of the minutes of the September 4th, 2013 meeting. I don't know if the board had a chance to review those minutes.
Yes.
Okay. As did not. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the October minutes as presented.
I'll second that.
September minutes?
October, I'm sorry, October. Is it September?
It was September 4th, yeah.
Sorry. September.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The September 4th meetings are approved. The next item on the agenda is a continued petition, no variance requested. It's for the consideration of a request for approval of a demolition of the residence located at 348 Scott Street and approval of a replacement residence, detached garage, site plan, and landscaping. The owner representative is Joel Pickus from Highwood Capital LLC. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. We brought back to the house at 348 Scott that we took some of your comments and incorporated them into our new elevations for the plan. And in front of you is the rendering, which has been revised, which shows we have a wider girth on the columns, and we got rid of the side lights on the door because they were a little busy. So we thought with the glass door we'd have plenty of light in the foyer anyway. Let me move on to the elevations. This is the original elevation you saw, and you can see the side lights and the thinner columns. And here you see we went to a 10 by 10 post size. It was 6 by 6 in the original, and we eliminated the side lights and kept a even cadence to the windows across the front, which the door continues that now. On the side elevations, this is the west. This is the original. We had a couple high windows there and a small porch off the back. What we did was we continued the window line across, continued the feel across the side of the building. That's the driveway side, the west. And kind of just cleaned it all up with using the same windows, nothing new. The north, this is the biggest issue in last meeting. We had, virtually no windows on the north elevation. Here you can see we've added doors out the back, windows up above. So we have your access to the back area now is from the north elevation now, not out the side. We eliminated that porch on the east side. And you can see here was the east. We had the porch and the sliders. Now we have high windows because there's a comment about the motor court next door, the lights flashing the windows. So now we have high windows. And we just continued the same high window that we had in the kitchen across. We eliminated one of the transoms in the kitchen so it wasn't interfering with the eave. One element that we are showing now is the open eave. You can see across all the lower eaves. So we have open eaves now on all the metal roofs at the bottom. And those were, that's the sum total of what we did to revise the elevations.
Great, thank you very much. Staff, would you like to have your comments, please?
Just a couple brief comments, Chairman. This was a continued item from the previous meeting. The board did have several comments and suggestions for the design. The petitioner has made several of the modifications that were requested by the board and are presented to the board this evening. Primarily on the rear elevation and with respect to the front porch are probably the most significant changes to the design. This is a request, if you recall, for the demolition of the existing structure and the design of the revised replacement structure. The board at the previous meeting expressed general support for the demolition aspect of this request, but was looking for refinement to the replacement structure to better meet the design guidelines and be consistent with the code. With that, I will note that the staff report has findings in support of both the demolition and the replacement structure. We are recommending approval with several conditions of approval, several conditions. In particular, there are some very large mature trees that are proposed to be protected during construction, and we will just monitor that carefully through the permitting process. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but the recommendation is to approve both the demolition and the replacement structure.
Okay, thank you very much. Now time for questions from the board to either the petitioner or the staff. I don't know if one has any or wants to lead off.
Has the drive court material remained the same from?
We're still going with a pervious material in the back area, asphalt basically to the house, and then pervious back.
Okay, thank you. Have any of the other materials changed?
No, it's still fiber cement, siding, and trim, and a aluminum clad wood window.
You did a nice job.
Thank you.
What is the proposed product for the standing seam?
We want to go with it's a galvanized sort of look, but it won't be galvanized, obviously, but it'll be kind of like that
Pre-finished?
pre-finished metal standing seam. Yes.
And what color gutters?
The gutters up top will probably be white to match all the trim. Because if we put galvanized up there, you're going to see a dissimilar color against the white trim board.
I have some questions. You noted that you now have open eaves on the porches?
Yes.
On the low story?
On the low ones, yes.
But not on the second floor, not on
Only,
the main body of the roof?
Yes, I mean, it would be great if we could do them up top also, but there's no way to do, only a suspended gutter could accommodate then a open eave design up there, which is totally out of character with a farmhouse. So the lower roofs don't shed very much water. They're small areas. So that's really not a concern, and leaving the gutters off them I don't think will pose a problem. They're all shedding into landscaped or soft areas. But the upper roofs that's a lot of water, so we really need to collect that. And I don't think there's a great way. I've looked a lot. I tried to look for something that was compatible, and there's no really good way to put a gutter on an open eave. You close it off with the gutter.
Right. Well, I mean, you just said what I was going to say, that in a farmhouse, open eaves really are not part of the character of a farmhouse. So I guess I'm wondering why you decided to introduce them to the lower porches.
Well, it is. It really is, though. There's a lot of farmhouse detailing that does include open eave. I mean, there's a lot that doesn't as well. But we thought it'd be a nice element especially where you're seeing it down you know, at the lower roofs, because you're close to that and you're going to be able to get that exposed feel and see to it. And it's a nice detail.
Right, it's more of an arts and craft or craftsman detail. So, on your front porch then, I think it would be important that when you present this for, permit, that there are more adequate porch and eave details. Because, you have your open eaves showing the rafter tails, but you have your porch beam is extending past the column, and that's probably a detail that you'd want to look at. The other, you have different window trim shown on different elevations. Some of the elevations, it's picture framed. The front elevation, it's, you know, the more traditional. Which trim are you going for?
Well, I think that we were probably going to see on the front elevation, that's the kind of with the header, you're saying?
Right.
Yeah, the capital top, I think that's what we were planning on using.
So that will be consistent?
Yes, we'll run that all the way around.
Yes, I think that should be consistent. And
Yes.
then also, the sill casing should not be picture framed as a traditional detail. That should also have the sill with
A 1-inch
with
extension.
the apron, yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
So-
I think we provided a detail to Megan on that.
You did, but
Yes.
the elevations are inconsistent, and I've just seen it on the board when we passed drawings, and they've been inconsistent, and then it's not built correctly. So I think on record, all the elevations and detailing have to be, should be consistent.
Yes,
And you would agree with that?
yes.
Okay. I noticed, I believe that's a new little side porch on the back entry, is that?
Well, that porch was there before, but what we did add is a small matching roof to shed the water off that back porch.
And then will that have the open eave rafters as well?
Yes.
Because the one next
Oh,
to
yeah,
it
you're
has
I
it and
see
that one
Yep.
doesn't?
I'm sorry, that should have been changed. That'll have that same detail, yes.
Okay, and then what is the material in on the front porch and the side gable?
That's open.
That's
That-
open?
That's open, yes. It's open construction through, because we have exposed beadboard up between the rafters through. So the ends of the gables are open.
Right,
yes.
okay, that's open, okay. And, okay, the garage, the double hung window that you're showing, the light divisions are inconsistent with the main house.
I don't think I have a picture up here, but yeah, those will be the same.
Okay, so that also,
Yeah, okay.
and what's the material of the garage door?
The garage door will be a painted steel
And it has no,
light.
is it just horizontal panels? I mean,
We were
it's showing
yeah.
like no
Yeah,
detailing at all.
we were just gonna keep it a flat panel.
Flat,
I didn't
okay.
think that a raised panel would look good in this case.
And the door, the man door to the garage is also just a flush door?
Well, it'll be a solid door, but I think we could do a style door if you thought that would be more appropriate.
Okay. And what is the exposure of the siding?
Oh, you mean, well, we were thinking probably an 8-inch lap,
Hardy board?
yes.
Okay, but that's something that is not, I mean, if it's gonna be 8-inch presented here, it should be, 8-inch, when it goes into permit, right? I mean, if
Yes.
we're gonna prove it's,
Yeah.
you're not gonna come back and say,
Right,
well,
no,
it's
we-
4
we-
inches or 12 or.
Yeah, no,
It's 8 inches?
right, we picked it right in the middle. That's what we thought would look good with us.
And is that what is indicated on the drawings?
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
Two questions, John.
Yeah, go ahead, Ted.
On the west elevation in front of us, there's the window in front of the staircase, and I was just curious, looking at your floor plan, how you're bridging the gap between the stairway behind the window.
Well, the stair is held off the wall, and so we have a well from the first to the second floor. Actually, it goes down to the stairs to the basement also, so we'll have that all capped off.
Okay,
So you would, through the window, you'll see the stair, but it'll be finished.
thank you. My second question is on the rear entrance door, also on the rear elevation. Is there any support, actually go back to the west elevation. Is there any support needed for the, yeah, right there?
The canopy?
Yeah.
Yes, the canopy has the same bracing, it's hard to see because the line's all kind of, that same bracing across
Cantilever.
there. Yeah, well, it's like a, just a kicker back
Okay.
to the
So
wall.
no
Same as the
post,
front
just-
porch.
That's all I've got, thank you.
Well, just a question. You mentioned that 8 inches is what you're proposing for the siding dimension, and the elevations as drawn are showing more of a 4-inch type of a dimension, probably because it's a field that you've
Right.
inlaid, it's not
The
reflecting.
computer lay.
It's a
overlay.
different character
Yeah.
than you would get with 8 inch, and I'm kind of intrigued by the finer scale, frankly, of the drawing as opposed to what you describe here as an 8 inch. Particularly when you look at the existing building in the submittal, which has 8 inch, and the close-up views that, not that one, but the.
Well, it's in the
that's on
corner
your-
down there, but it's really
the
hard to see
existing
from there.
building. I'm just intrigued with whether the finer scale siding might in fact be more attractive for this.
I think it's open to discussion, certainly. We thought a broader exposure would, create less busyness, because we don't, the farmhouse being a very simple design, there's not a lot of ornamentation, so we didn't want to create a lot of, busyness with the siding, but I don't think that it'd be wrong if there's a 4-inch exposure.
Well, just, it seems to me the building is small, like looking at the existing house in their relationship of 8, it's a much rougher scale, almost, I would hate to use the word crude, the existing house.
mean, a little
but
for
in a way, the smaller dimension, it seems to me, would be more appropriate to a small scale.
Well, we can certainly do that. I mean, it's the siding it can be whatever we want at this point, exposure-wise. I mean, they do have standard sizes, obviously, when you purchase it, but we can certainly take a look at that and work with staff if you'd like to on the exposure.
I think it'd be worth investigating.
Okay, absolutely.
Do you have a streetscape?
I don't have it on this. I think we submitted it to you.
It's not in the package.
Oh,
You don't have one?
not on
Because it would
the-
really be nice to see this building relationship to the neighboring buildings, and that's usually part of the
I know we
submittal.
had that in the last one. Unfortunately, we didn't put that up on this one. It's the same size. It's basically, all the houses are about the same. They're all about 30 feet tall on the block there.
Okay. At this time, is there anybody from the public would come up and have any questions or comments on this submittal? Seeing none. Anything else from staff at all? No? Okay. Okay. Time for board discussion and comment. Anyone like to kick it off at all?
Sure. I commend the petitioner. I think that you responded to our thoughts in the first presentation. I think it's an asset to the street, neighborhood. I would like to add, piggyback on my colleague's comments about the siding, that I think my opinion is it would be more successful with less reveal. I would encourage an evaluation of that, 6 or 4. Beyond that, I think, nice job.
I have anything new to add, other than I think the plan that you've changed to is an attractive alternative that will benefit the house and the neighbors.
I'm most concerned with the inconsistencies of the detailing of the house. Since it is supposed to be a simple farmhouse, I think that it's very important that all the architectural details are up to the traditional character. So I think if it moves forward, all the window and door casing and trim need to be consistent throughout. The column to the porch detail is a detail that I think should be addressed. The eave details, I personally think the open rafters is something that's not traditionally seen in a farmhouse. That's more arts and craft. And their original proposal had the closed eaves, and I found that to be, kind of a more cohesive look, personally. I think the front of the house is the massing and the width of it is a little wide. That's why I was interested in seeing the streetscape. What concerns me more so is the back. I appreciate the petitioner went ahead and put the windows and such in, but I still find that the back of the house is like all these cascading forms of pieces and attachments. It just is very busy, and I think a more simplistic mask would have worked in the rear elevation as well as it does on the front.
John?
Well, I think that the petitioner was responsive to some of the comments that we brought forward last meeting, and I think this would be I think it's a nice house, and I think it'd be a nice addition to the neighborhood, and I appreciate you taking our comments into consideration, so thank you.
I would agree with all the comments, and especially the ones related to the casing and the trim and matching up all those column sizes. And then the other one with regards to the 4-inch versus 6-inch versus 8-inch. And if you'll agree to work with staff on all that stuff to make sure it all ties in cleanly, I think it's a great project.
I agree with the comments, and I commend the petitioner for the progress that has been made since the last submittal was reviewed.
I agree. Thank you very much for making the alterations. I think that Monica brought up some good points during the question and answer period, and I think perhaps when we move this, just to make sure that those are in part of the minutes, and I think the consistency is really what I took away from that. The size, the siding 468, I think that's something personal preference. I'm not feeling strongly. I kind of got the sense from the board that let's see how it looks, what it comes out. But I think one thing we all can agree on is consistency, like the window frame, the window design in the garage didn't match the house. And I think there's just got to be consistent throughout. I'm sure we strive for that, but certainly think that we want to be careful, especially in a simplistic structure like this. So, with that being said, do we have a motion for approval? And then remember, there's there's a demolition here and a replacement structure. So the first would be the demolition.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the demolition portion of the petition, in that it meets the demolition standards and requirements of section 9-87 of the code.
Okay. You have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, demolition is approved.
And I'll make another motion to approve the petition as presented, subject to the general and specific recommendations of the staff report, prepared for this meeting, as well as the agreements of the petitioner and the comments here today.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? See none? It's approved. Thank you very much, gentlemen. The next item on the agenda is a consideration of a request for approval of a demolition of the residence located at 29 Washington Circle and approval of a replacement residence, detached garage, site plan, and landscaping. The owner is Nora McKinley. Representative is Paul Senka, architect. Welcome. And I'm sorry, before we go on, do any board members have a conflict of interest on this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, my company has been involved with the project. I personally am not involved with it, but I'd like to recuse myself from this discussion.
Very well, thank you. Please go ahead.
Good evening, and thanks for being here tonight to discuss the project with us. I've been before many boards in Lake Forest, and I always feel this is a great process to help the project along and come up with better ideas, and that's ultimately what we're all here for. So I do appreciate it. This is the first time that you're hearing about this project, so I'm going to try to give you a brief discussion on the concept of what we did here. And then in the end, I'll probably try to have a little discussion about some of the comments that staff has put in the report that you guys have before you in terms of how we feel about them, and then kind of go from there. I'll try to be as brief as I can, so obviously if I miss anything as I'm going through this that you want to talk about, don't hesitate to stop me or ask questions when I'm through. But basically what you have in front of you here at 29 Washington Circle is the existing farm style house that's there. The intention here is to demolish the house. It's actually currently located over the front yard setback as it's built. So interestingly enough, if we were to actually try to work with this structure, we'd probably be coming in for a variance to do that as well, because we're over that front yard setback. So we're gonna move forward to try to demolish the residence and put up the new structure that we'll talk about. Currently, the house is really in bad shape. You have a structural engineer's report in front of you that kind of depicts some of the issues with the house. Mainly, they're all structural items and structurally related to the foundation. The house has been neglected for several years and is in need for several repairs that kind of really take it to the point of, does it make sense to try to salvage this house or, obviously demolish it and start over? Weighing the pros and cons, obviously, with all of them. I won't talk too much about the report. I'm sure you've looked through it, but you can kind of see the whole house has had infiltration with water, so there's a lot of discoloration and so forth, mold, what have you, within the house. It's certainly not a healthy environment to be in currently. This is the garage associated with the property that's at the back of it. I'm sure that you've all been out there and taken a look at it. It's getting ready to fall over as it stands. You've got this tree in the back, which is one of the oak trees that we're considering for removal. That one as well as this, and you'll see that on the site plan. Those are the two trees right there that excuse me, that you'll see talked about. This is kind of just a general overall look of the house. We kind of put this together just to try to have a feel for what we're taking down, and we want to try to give a little credence to it when we replace it. So we're kind of duplicating some of the eave detailing that you'll see on the existing house, as well as you'll see in some of the overlays. We're actually kind of tying in this existing porch eyebrow roof into our new porch detail as well. Before we kind of made the realization that we were going to kind of go forward with a new structure, we did kind of look at what would happen if we did try to add something onto the back of it. Again, you can see the house is over the front yard setback. The current garage is over the setback in the back as well. And then these two trees were really creating a limiting issue for us. We've since had these trees looked at by the arborist, and this one here has some very bad disease and is deemed, to be taken down. And this oak in the back, that was, as you saw from that picture, it's kind of leaning into the garage. So that one as well is going to be an issue. This here is kind of an overlay showing our proposed footprint as well as where the existing garage is. And then when we kind of came in here, just to give you a general overall on the site, we were trying to come in with a project that actually pulled further away from the street, so it wasn't quite out in front of these adjacent properties anymore. It's going to be back a little bit, as well as you're going to kind of have a translucent porch that kind of buffers you from the street and the house. In the end, we wanted to make sure we didn't really get too far back with it either. As you saw in my other design with the potential addition expansion, we were going to be much further into the backyard. And I felt it was kind of important to keep those views, not only for this project, but as well as the neighbors, to just to keep that open. This kind of is the general site engineering that's in your plan. It looks like everything's, in concert. I know, Mike, you're saying you can't comment on this now, but I mean, basically the water, is being diverted in swales along both sides of the property. We're basically maintaining the grades that are there. I actually think we're solving some issues. There was some low-lying areas in the back of the property where water collected and created some issues, and I think now we're kind of deviating from that and getting a lot of that water out of the area. As far as the way that this is going to blend in with the surrounding landscaping wise, we're basically, it's similar to kind of what's there, only being dressed up with a much nicer arrangement of plant life. You know, we're going to maintain a buffer. We've kept the house narrow enough so that we could have a landscape buffer as well as a driveway and another landscape buffer up to the house. Quite often you'll see these houses where the driveway is all the way up to the house, so we're trying to maintain that so that we can have a gradual transition from house to landscaping. In terms of its surroundings, as you know, it's in a very kind of eclectic neighborhood. There's a lot of you know, farm-style houses. Some are a little more stylized than others. Some of our are very traditional. This is the house directly to the west. This is the back side of that house. So that our new house is going to kind of come just before the edge of the back corner of that house, and then this will be the house off to the east. I've got a kind of a side picture here because this is heavily landscaped. You really can't even, you know, get in front of this house to take a good shot of the front of it. But you know, another, you know, example of a farm style house. And then these are some of the homes that are kind of in the neighborhood, same kind of thing. We've kind of pulled some of the detailing from some of these other homes in an effort to, you know, again, blend with the environment and have it all kind of fit in. This is kind of a picture. This is down the street. It's just to show you that there's a lot of flavor in the neighborhood. There's definitely some, you know, deviation from a true, you know, farm style house to, you know, was potentially there to, you know, to where we're at. This house here I put in just to show you that this is kind of a similar window trim detailing that we're going to be doing. In addition to this, and you were talking about in the last house, we're actually going to do the sill and the apron underneath the windows and give it a little more traditional style look to the window. You know, I didn't want to overdo that and start to get it too detailed, so we're trying to stay within the farm style detailing of the houses. Again, just another style of architecture that's within the neighborhood. Couple of these pictures I put in just to kind of show you some of the homes that have double overlapping gables that are in the direct vicinity of where this house is going, and I'm sure we're going to have some discussions about it, so I just wanted to show those. This one's actually a little further down the street. The main comments there is, you know, that the double gable should help accentuate the front entrance, and I think in our example of what we came up with that it does, and I think that's kind of where you're going to be at with it. This is the overlay of our new structure with the existing. The heavy lines is kind of what the existing house kind of is right now, and you can kind of see we're trying to tie in so a lot of those lines. You can see on the front here that we've actually even pushed the house a little further back from where the original house is standing right now. Overall, massing-wise from the street, it's very similar to what is currently there, and that was done intentionally, obviously. This is kind of a street massing of what we're talking about. The house to the west, house to the east, and here we are in the middle. And basically, you know, we were trying to continue. There's actually a strong, in my opinion, you've got kind of gable front facing and then gable kind of going left to right on both of these houses. And what we did is kind of try to continue the same thing. So your eye kind of marches its way down the streetscape as you're moving along, and then kind of soften the front with the porch element. You know, and that's kind of where we got to with our design. I can talk a little bit about the detailing on the house here a little bit. It's going to be 5-inch hardy board siding with a 5-inch exposure. We're going to do 5-inch corner boards with the Meritech, which you have in front of you there. I can hand it to you. You can take a look at it, but it has two faces to it. The Meritech, one side's a smooth face and one side's a grainy face, and we're going to go with the smooth side, just because I think it has a better replication of what the actual wood would be if you use cedar for that application. That Meritech will be also used for the detailing around the windows. The deck railing and posts are going to be a material called Azic, which is what that railing configuration is that you're seeing there, which is kind of comprised of a traditional, not too overdone, detailed porch railing. The pilasters will all be done out of the Meritech material as well, in a traditional fashion, as well as the beam and lintel and capital details. Do you want me to hurry up, or do you want me to?
Yeah, if you got, just
Okay.
keep moving along.
Okay. The roof will be cedar shake, copper roof here, very unstylized front door, just kind of much more of a traditional look with a very traditional, simplistic surround that's run around the house with a stone chimney that's kind of off in the back there. True divided or simulated true divided lights with the bars on the interior and the exterior as well. And the garage is kind of in the back with the same type of materials. You'll see the carriage doors in the back with the bracketing and so forth. These are kind of the architectural detail. We're going to go with half-round aluminum gutters to try to, to mimic the traditional detailing. The eaves, again, will kind of replicate what's on the existing house, as well as, what traditionally should be done. On the right side, which is the east side, we have the window fenestration that you can kind of take a look at in your plan to see obviously what they all are, but we try to make sure everything had rhythm to it and lined up and made sense as you work your way across the elevation, as well as the back, just trying to give it some good balance and have it make sense and not look like the back of a house necessarily, as well as the, excuse me, the west elevation. This is a quick depiction of the back area, the garage that we're talking about doing. All the detailing basically would be the same. We're thinking about doing a little shed roof over the side entrance to the garage to give yourself a little cover, since it is a detached garage that we're talking about. Really won't go into the plans or the roof plans too much. These are kind of some concepts that we talked about as other options for the massing of the house. We feel that where we ended up makes the most sense. I still personally feel that the way it's detailed and where the massing and so forth works, that it still fits in with the traditional farm style houses that are in the area. This is just a quick rendering. We were playing around with a couple different colors to show you what that might look like. There was some inference in the staff report to take a look at doing the side dormers as shed dormers, just to try to help simplify the building a little bit. So I kind of did a quick rendering of that to show you what that might look like. It does some things, but others I think it actually, in some ways, it may complicate it a little bit further than what it currently is. I think the versions that you saw before where we had the gable dormers, they actually kind of blends a little and actually calls less attention to itself. So maybe that is or isn't the answer, but we thought we'd take a look at that. With that, I do have Norm McKinley, the owner's with me. I have Adam Lubrick from the builder that's going to be doing the project. So if you have any questions pertaining to them, I believe Nora wants to say a few words to you. I don't know if you would like her to do that now or if you would like to wait.
Let's wait on that if you don't mind.
No,
in the interim, if you don't mind passing on at least the Meritech to the board members while we get the staff's comments, please. Thanks. Megan?
Thank you, Chairman King.
Thank you.
Again, this request before the commission or before the board is for the demolition of the existing structure and the design of the proposed replacement structure. At this point, staff has identified some key issues with respect to the replacement structure and is recommending that the board provide input and direction at this meeting to allow further refinement to the replacement structure. The petitioner has submitted adequate information to support the demolition. Staff does support that aspect of this request. But as far as my comments go, I really want to focus on more of the details of this project, especially given the location of this property in a neighborhood where the streetscape really is dominated by the scale, the design, the proportions of the front elevations of the home. So in cases like this, embellishments really do impact the streetscape. The design guidelines are written to encourage new construction to be based in traditional design principles. Those principles that have been proven to withstand the test of time, balance, proportion, simplicity, and we're really looking for the board to provide input on those elements for this project. I won't go into too much detail. It is outlined in your staff report. But the use of overlapping gables on a front elevation, where historically that would be an embellishment for a front door, and not necessarily an application for the purpose of having an overlapping gable. So elements like that, I welcome the board's comments and input. The petitioner did provide some alternative studies to react to some of the comments that are in the staff report. I welcome the board's comment on that, the use of shed dormers versus the gable dormers, but really looking at the proportion and scale of various elements, such as the door out to the second floor balcony and the relationship of that element to the wall space. Looking at the materials, I know the board is looking at some of the synthetic materials that are proposed for this project. Again, the design guidelines does encourage the use of natural materials. There have been some non-natural materials that have been approved by the board. Really looking at the texture, the look, the feel of those materials is important. Again, given the prominence of these structures along the street and the pedestrian activity that occurs in this neighborhood. One final comment on the site plan. The petitioner was very thoughtful in the layout of the property, preserving space between the driveway and the property line to allow for a landscape buffer. The scale of the home in terms of relationship to neighboring homes, I think, is consistent with the design guidelines and compatible with the neighborhood. So with that, I welcome your comments this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. It's time for the board for questions to the staff or petitioner. Fred, why don't we shift it off and head down to you, since you're always last. I want you to be first this time, Fred, if you have any questions.
I do. What is the projection of the gable to the right? The projection of the wall face from the wall behind it?
It's a 2-foot projection. Double check for you. Yes, 2 feet.
Okay. I guess because the shadow is small, I was reading it as much smaller than that, and then it was bothering me that it was smaller. I think it's better that it is larger, as you described. Not the only question I have right now.
Yeah, I got a couple. Are you gonna need some relief as it relates to the garage going over that rear setback?
No, as my understanding is that we're okay with that rear yard setback. We don't require variance for that.
And my only other comment is, I like your design, but I think that there's so much going on in the front of it when you look at it, looking at the garage and the dormer on the garage. And to me, visually, it seems like there's so many triangles flowing through the front elevation on the property that it seems really busy to me. And I'm wondering, I noticed you had a 12-12 roof. Is that because the roof is so steep? Is that what requires you to have the extra like side dormers and stuff like that?
You mean the dormers that are on the side elements?
Yeah.
In relationship to it? Yeah, that's just a factor of the roof being dropped down to bring the scale of the house down. And then the dormers are popping through the roof, as a result of that, so that the window heads could still be at a 6'8" height when you're standing on the second floor level. That's really kind of what happens there. I mean, the roof could theoretically all be brought up, but then we're going to be adding mass and bulk and size to the house, and we were trying to keep it as low as possible.
My only comment is I'm just wondering if it can be less busy.
I mean, I gave you obviously some examples of that, I think, where some of the, the triangles, as you call them, are taken out, and you can kind of look at those. I don't think that we're adding, because I could certainly add more. I mean, we could have a dormer that could be, sitting up on the front. I mean, there's all kinds of things we could continue to add and really get it busy. And I guess the reason that this gable is here is it's really kind of accentuating the front door. And if there was one that you would be taking out, it would be this break that's happening in between. But then you're gonna lose the emphasis from the overall house on the front door, and that's kind of what that's there for. If this porch wasn't here, this would be a good representation of what Megan's actually talking about in terms of how it would accentuate the front entrance to create that double break in the gable, which are, you know, some of those examples that are in your packet are doing. The only difference here is we've got, you know, a porch that's kind of breaking that up a little bit to soften that feel, you know, on the front of the house. You know, and it adds another degree of detail to the house, obviously, once you do that.
Thank you.
Why the use of the synthetic materials on the railing and the siding?
We're just trying to keep the maintenance issues down as low as possible on this house. That's really the main reason. And I think personally at this point, the materials have gotten so good. You know, once the material is painted, it's very difficult to tell it is synthetic. It doesn't start to have that plastic feel to it that, you know, we've grown accustomed to seeing in the past.
I'll verify that, Charlie.
That's all I had.
Product.
I find that what staff has written in the report is very much on the mark, and I'm just wondering how open you are to following their suggestions.
You know, we've actually been working with staff already. We've made several suggestions that they've made to us to help simplify the house. So, you know, it's not that we're not working with them. We're definitely open to other suggestions. I think where we're at with our design right now is, you know, the additional suggestions, I guess, that were made were the removal of the garage dormer. I guess we would be potentially open to talking about that. The changing the dormers to shed dormers, my client's really just not in favor of that style. That being said, you know, if you told her you'd approve her project if you did shed dormers, I'm sure she would say she'd be happy to do it, you know, because she knows that that's not going to necessarily affect the overall feel of her house, and she would be willing to work within that. You know, any of the detailing in terms of keeping the house, you know, traditional and true to form, we're happy to do anything along those lines. You know, we're happy to discuss the materials, which you know, you kind of have before you, and any of the detailing in terms of using those. You know, and I think that really kind of leaves that last element with the double gable in terms of simplifying the structure, because quite honestly, I think that's why that's being brought up, right? It's because if the double gable, the house would have a little bit more simplicity to it. My client's struggling with that one as well. She doesn't want the house to be, you know, yes, she realizes it needs to look like a farmhouse. She realizes it needs to have farmhouse detailing, but she wants to have it, you know, maybe not be modernized necessarily. You know, I don't want to use that term at all, but she wants to have it have a little different feel than, you know, somebody else's house that might be, you know, located in the area, without getting too carried away. You know, and I don't think that what you're looking at has gotten too busy. But that being said, certainly open to any suggestions that you guys might have.
Okay, thank you.
The two overarching concerns that I have, particularly with the front elevation, are the double gable at the front of the house. It's a fairly small elevation, and following the school of thought about form following function, I think that the front door is emphasized well enough with the gable above it, and having the double gable to the upper right hand of it doesn't add anything other than complicate the design. And looking at your floor plans, you're not really getting any use of the bump out from that on any additional space on any floor. So I would like to see that element removed. I also don't, unless there's a function for the window above the back garage, if the intent is to break up that roof line, I'm not sure it's really necessary because so much of the roof of the garage is hidden from the street. And I would support seeing that element taken out of the garage roof. Other than that, it's a very attractive design, and appreciate your attention to addressing our concerns.
Thank you.
The chimney material is stone?
Yes.
What type of stone?
You know, I don't believe we have a sample with us, but it's, did you bring anything on that? Okay. So it's a Fond du Lac stone. It's gonna be kind of a, you know, a cut stone. We're not planning on doing any kind of, you know, rolled stone or boulders or anything like that, with limestone shoulders and a limestone kind of cap on the top there.
The pronounced shoulder?
Yes.
I agree with my colleagues about that, the additional gable, the double gable in front. I think that adds a busyness that maybe is unsuccessful. I'm not as concerned with the garage dormer because it's set back quite a bit. I think it adds a bit of character and some whimsy back there that I kind of appreciate. But what I am bothered by is the bay, the front bay. There is no consistency to that relative to the balance of the home. You know, all of a sudden, there's a copper influence. There's the traditional bay roof, whereas you have all these sharp gable lines elsewhere. So I'm struggling with the bay, not necessarily the bay itself, but the roof. Have you looked at any alternatives to that?
Yes, and I guess the alternative would be to do something similar to what's on the porch, to the right of it, you know, just more of a, obviously take the curves out of the copper and straighten it out, and do that, shake roof to match the rest of the roofing. And, you know, and I think we'd be certainly open to taking a look at that to see if it makes sense on the house. I'm not opposed to that. There are other stylized ways to do that copper roof too as well, and probably more of a rigid, straightforward technique instead of having that curve that you're taking a look at in there.
I would be in favor of that. Beyond those comments, as well, one last comment, the drive court in front of the garage, the last petitioner had included a pervious product in that area with a similar setback garage, and it only enhances the permeation of the, you know, and enhances the drainage ability, and also I think adds an aesthetic value. Have you looked at that? I know that there's an expense factor, but if you limit it to the court area in the rear,
we have looked at and talked about it a little bit, and certainly would be happy to continue to do that, you know, take that look at that, because there's some areas within that landscape plan where that could be achieved. So yeah, it's just a matter, I think, of taking a look at, you know, this area is what I was kind of thinking about, the porch here as well, the patio. I think it's just a matter of cost issues, you know, what kind of implications those may have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a question, Megan, what was the concern on the east elevation, the balcony door going out there? Could you review kind of your thoughts on that, please?
Yes.
Actually, I'm sorry, I was asking Megan
Oh,
her
I'm
concerns,
sorry.
and,
Okay.
In general, just looking at the scale of that element as it relates to the wall, and how, as a composition, it works on that elevation.
Mr. Sanko, maybe you could, following those comments, your thoughts?
So, this door basically is access out to this porch. That's coming, and if you look in plan, that's coming off of a master bedroom over there. Again, what's happening in terms of trying to keep the mass of the house down over here, and if you look at this, obviously, it's kind of unfair to be looking at this two-dimensionally, but from a three-dimensional perspective, you know, you're gonna be kind of seeing these things all together. This mass of the main body of the rear elevation of the house, coupled with that lower dormer, I think it's a better solution than actually what would have to happen to this rear roof structure and element in an effort to get that door to work. We would have to actually raise this whole roof up, and that's gonna create a whole height issue and a scale issue with the house again. I think this has kind of a nice feel, the main emphasis there. You know, that being said, can this be, you know, reduced in size? You know, what potentially could probably work here. Right now, we're keeping it at the same height as the other ones, but we could probably drop that down in that area, and that would kind of mitigate the size of it a little bit, so it's not as tall.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Okay. Now's a chance for the public, anyone from the public to step forward. And I know the owner, Ms. McKinley, wanted to say something. If there's no other public that wants to come forward, I think it'd be appropriate. Oh, this is the public. Please step up to the microphone if you would, ma'am. Thank you.
I'm Ann Mormon. I'm 25 Washington Circle, so I'm probably impacted more than anyone else. I love the design of the house. My father was an architect. My father designed the addition to my house. I am thrilled that this house is going to come down. I know that I was told the walls in the wintertime were wet. The house is definitely substandard. Over the years, we've doubled the size of our house. We've replaced the foundation. We've poured a lot of money. We've gutted it back to the walls. We've poured a lot of money into the house. We're delighted with what Nora has had designed. We're looking forward to this new house.
Thank you very much. Ms. McKinley, would you still like to come forward?
My name is Nora Grow McKinley, and I'm the new owner of 29 Washington Circle. Just so you know a little bit about me, I spent my childhood in Barrington Hills and moved to Wisconsin upon my husband's and my graduation from college. After my husband's illness and subsequent death in 2008, I moved back home to Illinois, and I purchased a property on Bradley Road, which my contractor, Adam Lubrich, built, a new house, and I'm on an acre of land there. After having gotten to know Lake Forest, I love the town, and I think moving into town would be beneficial for me, and I'm excited about it. This is the 5th time that I will have done something. I've built 2 homes, a veterinary clinic, and we remodeled our cottage. So I'm used to the process of building and designing, and I enjoy it very much. And I think Paul and Adam have come up with a wonderful plan, and I thank you for your consideration of it.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. McKinley.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any final questions from the board to either the staff or the petitioner? Okay. Chance for the board to discuss this petition then. Maybe we should tackle the demolition first. Any thoughts on that?
I agree with the staff entirely. It meets all the criteria for demolition.
As well. Agreed.
Okay. All right. And then the replacement structure. Obviously, quite a few comments from staff, and I think some of the board members feel strongly on the front facade, the gable, et cetera. But why don't we start down with you, Ross, and kind of highlight what you think.
Well, overall, I do think I agree that there's been wonderful attention to detail. It'll be a nice addition to the neighborhood, in keeping with the character, the massing. No variances are being requested, and I support the overall. That said, I think the comments made tonight about perhaps improving small portions should be heeded, inclusive of the double gable, perhaps my bay comment, you know, open for thought on the dormer above the garage, maybe some pervious material. But beyond that, I think that it's very successful.
Okay. Ted?
I don't really have anything to add other that we haven't addressed already. To address Ross's concern over the bay window and the roof line, I actually personally found that attractive. I didn't have the same issues with it. In terms of the building materials, I don't have any experience on how they hold up in time and whatnot, but it certainly, upon presentation to us, looked like a certainly suitable alternative to a natural wood trim material. And I don't have any opposition to the petitioner utilizing it in the construction. I have nothing else to add.
Okay.
I agree with staff on all of their points. I think the front elevation is a classic example of, you know, the overlapping gables. That is something that is not what we typically approve due to the design guidelines that we have. So I think that if the petitioner would go ahead and revise the front elevation into something of a more simplistic nature without the overlapping gables, the project would be very successful. I did look at some of the alternates that they presented, and some of them did seem like, you know, if they would have been presented, that could have, you know, probably passed the board. But going back to Ross's comment about the bay, that's what when I was looking at all the alternatives, it always seemed to me that bay was competing with the porch elements. There's something about the bay roof that's not really syncing with the rest of the elevation. So maybe a more simplistic roof on that bay with, you know, the elimination of those overlapping gables would, you know, present a simple, elegant petition. Overall, I think the massing of it, the rest of the massing is fairly nice. The rear elevation, you know, those two simple gables on the back work really well. I do think for the side dormers, the shed dormer in concept, it seemed like it would be a good idea, but it didn't really look that great. But I do think that the gables as proposed now are too tall. There's something about the proportion of them that is not quite right. So if the petitioner would look at those again, maybe the eave line has to come down or something like that. But overall, you know, the balance of those side elevations in the rear are pretty good, and the synthetic materials, I'm pretty good with those. I mean, the hardy board is something we've approved before. So.
What do you think of the railing and the trim? Synthetic. I no problem with hardy board. It's a proven product, and I think it does look good. This is something I don't think we've approved since I've been here.
Charlie, I've used this product quite a bit with great success.
Okay. The problem is it's a synthetic material, and design guidelines say So I know you might have things. You know, this is a big leap forward here. So I'm very sensitive to this as a board. That as soon as we prove one thing on a railing like this, you are opening up for floodgates.
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
so I want to make sure this board understands that this is kind of a leap of faith here on this material.
Well, technology has advanced in that regard.
It's good looking material. I was surprised how sturdy it looks and nice, but
And it actually, because it does weather better, holds up longer, it doesn't check, split, warp, all of those aspects, it actually ends up, the appearance stands the test of time better than natural, than a wood will if it's not maintained very well. Natural wood, if you don't
sure.
refinish, repaint, and love it often enough, it really deteriorates quickly, whereas this product, maintains it.
What's it made out of? I mean, what's the underlying goop? Goop, like a type of plastic goop?
It's engineered material, I'm not sure.
It's like a
do a
high-pressure
subcommittee on that?
density kind of fiber.
I think we'll see. I would be interested, staff, have we approved any of these materials in the past, the AZIC or the Meritech on any other houses?
The hardy board material has been approved by the board, and that is, I believe, a wood-based product, similar to the Miratech. The AZEC is a more plastic-based product, so it does have more of a sheen to it than some of the other products that you're reviewing up at your tables this evening.
Although it's completely paintable.
Yeah, but I guess we don't want it to look plastic.
I'm not comfortable.
Right,
I'm not
agreed.
comfortable approving it.
No, this is internal board discussion, thanks, so I appreciate it. We'll come back to you if we need the help. So have we approved, we have not approved anything with the AZEC, have we approved any of this Miratech materials?
Not that I'm aware of. The more popular product that's out there has been the hardy board, and it does have a trim product that goes with
Or it
it.
does.
And both the trim and the siding has been approved. The board in the past has not been supportive of the hardy shake product because it doesn't have that same dimension as a cedar shake at this point. Certainly technology is changing. I think 10 years ago we probably wouldn't even be looking at the hardy board type product. But certainly there's technology that's improving.
Could I add one more comment about the garage dormer?
Please.
Going back with staff, I don't think it's necessary on the garage either. I think it adds to the bulk of it, and I think that the garage is just as good without it, so.
Bob, what are your thoughts on the project, comments?
I'm glad my colleagues are more articulate than I am on these subjects. All I said was it looked busy, and everybody kind of put it together, which is great. I am uncomfortable with non-natural products, just generally, so I'm really concerned about that. I do like, I mean, it looks great. It's a little busy, but it looks great, and it looks like it's going to be an awesome building. But I'm sticking with what my colleagues are saying. It just needs to be cleaned up a little bit.
Fred?
Yeah, I think there are many appealing features about the design, but I share also in the discomfort that has been expressed in more than one location around the table. I agree with Board Member Ruggles about the dormers, the gables at the roof, dormers over the windows that they're high, or the forehead's very big for the face. And I think that would benefit by being brought down. I agree with that. And my very first impression was that the busyness of it, given the scale of the building. And having said that, I like the features, I like the proportions, I like what the double gable does for the verticality that it brings to the entrance ensemble. So I think it's a matter of whether there's enough dimension here, size of building to carry all these features. Having said that, I think it relates well to the building, what relates also to the scale on the street. So it's on the edge of discomfort versus I really like it. And it falls right in the middle, where I'd like to be more enthusiastic, but I don't find it something I would oppose.
Thanks, Fred. I guess my 2 cents is I think it's a real nice first start here. I appreciate the sensitivity to the neighbors. It's great that we have a neighbor that's so excited about having this new house potentially next to her. I like the way you kind of made it same footprint, just a little bit further back. I think it fits well. Nice feel to it, not over busy, but I think these are legitimate concerns that have been raised by both the board and the staff. Seems to be coalescing around that. I really am not comfortable with synthetic materials. Perhaps maybe the trim, but I am concerned about that railing. Something just not quite there yet on kind of taking that leap there. So I think what we're coalescing around here are making some improvements here based upon our discussions here, and maybe bringing it back to the board with some of our suggested changes, folks, or?
Yeah,
Is that what you'd like to see?
absolutely.
Is there a particular elevation of the ones that they showed to us, the front elevations, that spoke to anyone, or you know, to provide further direction for the petition that might be helpful if we commented on the things on the screen now? I think the double gable roof element was something that I think the majority of people did not like. So perhaps the top left or the top center is something kind of a starting, again, not married to it specifically, but are those elements that look to make improvements?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
And
top
then,
left, like
and then the bay window, again, maybe a little simplification there. Et cetera. Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't choose to direct them in any of those in particular. I would just leave it up to them to come back with what they feel is their, you know, best presentation next time,
Okay.
knowing that our guidelines.
Okay. All right, do we have a move to a motion here?
Based on the issues that we're talking about, which, you know, I think they're all obviously valid concerns, we're really only talking about 4 or 5 things here. Does it make any sense to try to form any kind of a subcommittee or something like that? And just try
That's
to
funny you
resolve-
ask. We were just talking about subcommittees and their roles, and we found it actually to be more advantageous to both petitioner and to all parties involved to bring it back when we have this many options before us to full board approval. So I think that's what we're comfortable with as a board, and we found that tool to work a little better, actually.
Nora, did you
But
say-
appreciate the thing, and
Just in an effort to try to expedite.
sure,
it.
understood.
The entire reason for the bay is my baby grand piano. There's no place else for it in the house, so that's why the bay is there. And in fact, it's tighter than the bay that I currently have my baby grand in. So, you know, that concern.
Perhaps then just an evaluation of the roof to the bay
Correct.
Okay,
might be something more consistent with the elevation.
Great.
thank you.
So what would the motion be?
I think it's motion just to
Continue.
continue the petition.
I move to continue the petition based upon the comments made by the board and the staff's recommendations.
Okay,
Second?
all in favor? Aye. Opposed? No? Okay. Motion, petition is continued. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now's a chance for the opportunity for the public to address any other non-agenda items. Okay? And the last agenda item is we've got a schedule of meetings for 2014 before us. There was some talk, Mr. Notz, you did not join us for dinner, so there was some talk of moving the January 2nd meeting, perhaps, just given the holidays, we're not sure. So we struck a bargain with Megan to poll the members on that. But I think the idea here is to approve the other dates for 2014 and poll for the January date. Okay? Do we have a motion for that?
Move to approve the schedule of meetings for 2014.
Okay?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are approved for 2014 dates. I think we are adjourned, subject to someone moving for adjournment.
Move for adjournment.
Second?
Approved?
Aye.
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 Thank you. We are adjourned.